The 2012 NBA draft was notable for many reasons. It was one of just a handful of drafts in history with a clear-cut consensus number 1 pick. That was Anthony Davis. Nobody else was considered to be close to him in terms of talent and potential. Eventually, 4 of the top 10 picks made an All-Star and All-NBA team, which is quite impressive. It was also the year the Charlotte Bobcats registered the worst record, the worst winning percentage in NBA history. And yet, hilariously, they still missed out on the first pick. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and in this video, let's take a look at the second and fourth pick of the class, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and Dion Waiters. 2 players who've had their moments but certainly did not live up to the level of their peers. Also, I think both of them are done. The 2020 season was the last time they appeared in an NBA game, and since then, they missed the entire 2020-21 season, cause nobody wanted them. What happened? Why did their careers not pan out? Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. Unfortunately, he had to shoulder the burden of being picked right behind Anthony Davis, and right from the start, it was clear he had so many issues with his game. Initially, the point in drafting him was that the Bobcats needed a versatile wing player, a defensive-minded glue guy who can run the floor and complement their primary scorers. Scouts perceived him as the perfect guy to play off of their stars, but he himself will probably never be one. The issue is, when he first joined Charlotte, they did not have any stars for him to complement. So instead, the team tried to force him into the role of the leading man, which did not work out at all. As Jonathan Wasserman put it nicely, "He's a jack-of-all-trades, master of none. MKG's biggest weakness surrounds his inability to create his own shot in the half-court. Though he doesn't have the typical upside of a top 2 to 5 pick, he poses zero risk when you consider his intangibles and physical tools." Instead of saying he has a low ceiling, it's more appropriate to say he has a high basement. See, everyone knew MKG wasn't ever going to carry a team, which is why people don't criticize him for being a bust, because he basically turned out how we expected, but still a bit worse than what his team wanted. Throughout his time in Charlotte, he fulfilled the role of a supporting player. When Al Jefferson and Kemba Walker were the 2 primary scorers, MKG did everything he could to play off their skills. When Kemba makes a play, he would try to give him space or position himself to receive a pass if he needs help. When Jefferson does his usual stuff in the post, MKG would stand at the elbow or cut to the rim, in case he needs to pass it out. The majority of his shots in every season of his career was assisted by somebody else. In fact, a large majority was, but that's kind of expected. Like the scouting report said, he could never consistently create his own shot. The problem isn't just his shooting either, which, we all know how bad it was. But he also lacked the ability to make a play by attacking the rim. For a guy heavily praised for his athleticism, this dumbfounded everyone. It was deemed as a major strength of his prior to the NBA, yet he struggled. That's because, back in college, he was faster and more athletic than most players at his position. But in the NBA, that's not the case. NBA small forwards are just as quick and just as athletic. Most of them even more so compared to MKG. The best he can do is drive down a wide open lane, but if there's any player in front of him, he panics and passes it out, or takes a ridiculous off-balance shot. It was his lack of court awareness that really hampered him. However, not all the blame should go on him though. Charlotte had the reputation of having a putrid player development process. They had so many high draft picks, yet Kemba was the only guy who panned out. Heck, imagine if they took Beal instead. A backcourt of Kemba and Beal? Yeesh, that would have been exciting. As the years went by, the Hornets steadily improved and returned to the playoffs by 2016. Funny enough, this was their best season since drafting MKG. Yet MKG was injured for the entire season with shoulder problems. He missed all but 7 games that season, but the Hornets still had a phenomenal year, winning 48 games, and narrowly losing in the first round. It was that summer when his team realized, maybe he's just a lost cause. The advanced metrics have always not been kind to him. He was a net negative in every season of his career. None of the team's best lineups included him, and he's always had a negative box plus minus. For a guy who takes 47% of his shots literally at the rim, his efficiency was abysmal. He finished at a worse rate than most point guards. Everyone knew his metrics on paper were so bad, but we didn't want to believe it until we saw how good the Hornets became without him. When they replaced him with Nick Batum in the starting lineup, they immediately jumped 19 spots in offensive rating, going from the 28th best offense to 9th. As a result, the Hornets rewarded Nick Batum with a colossal 5-year, $120 million contract. Now, that's a bit too much, and it quickly turned out to be a huge overpay and a huge mistake. Regardless, for MKG, he recovered from shoulder surgery and made his return, but the Hornets regressed back to their usual state. The shoulder injury thwarted any chance of him improving his jump shot, as he reverted back to the exact same player he looked like when he was a rookie. Fast forward to 2020 and he gets waived on the last year of his contract. Then he briefly joins the Mavs to help him warm the bench, and then he tries to join the Knicks, but gets waived right before the 2021 season commenced. If this is it for his career, it's been sad, but it's been real. For Dion Waiters, he's had a completely different journey. Getting drafted at number 4 was a huge surprise to begin with, because he was just the 29th ranked player at a high school. At Syracuse, he was mostly a backup shooting guard. Scouts pegged him as a late lottery pick, somewhere in the 10 to 12 range. So the Cavs shot for the stars. Also, they already had Kyrie, and Dion was an extremely undersized 6'3" shooting guard with short arms, and basically played like a worse version of Kyrie. Unlike MKG, Waiters did not stay in Cleveland for long. When LeBron joined the team in 2014, Waiters' game plummeted. The two of them did not click, and eventually he would get traded to OKC. It turned out to be better for both of them in the long run. When Waiters looked back and recalled his time with LeBron, he admitted, "When you're young, you're still trying to find yourself coming into the league. I think Bron was trying to help me with that, but I was so stubborn back then. But I understand now. I've been through a lot. I'm at peace with myself." Waiters became a critical piece in the Thunder's 2016 playoff run. Initially, the Thunder wanted to keep him and run it back, but after Durant announced his decision to join Golden State, Sam Presti decided to let Dion walk, as they were no longer hoping to contend. Dion's following years in Miami were, in my opinion, his best years. Despite the injuries, it was in Miami where he truly stood out. Waiters found consistent minutes as a starter, developing into an all-around combo guard. Now, it's impossible to replace Dwayne Wade, but he's always been his biggest fan, and he tried his best to carry on his legacy. Waiters averaged the highest three-point percentage and assists of his career, and most importantly, for the first time of his career, he was on a team that truly believed in him. His lack of consistency was always a problem, and it continued to be a problem. This was Dion's kryptonite. Sometimes he'd make an amazing play that captivates the crowd, but then he'd do something foolish in the next possession. I don't know how it's possible, but he's an even less consistent version of J.R. Smith, except without the shooting touch. Another issue was he never had a true position. He was not a real point guard nor shooting guard, but he was slowly and steadily gaining ground in Miami. That was until the injury started. With a combination of severe ankle problems, having a panic attack on the plane for consuming too many THC edibles, and even lying to the franchise by falsely calling in sick so he can party, it looks like the Miami life got to him. The pandemic-ridden season was a disaster, but Waiters found himself signing with the Lakers, reuniting with LeBron. The Lakers ran through the playoff bracket, although Waiters himself was benched for most of it. At the end, they won the title, and he won the first and probably the last championship of his career. Since then, he has yet to draw interest from any other team and is still waiting on the sidelines for somebody to give him another chance. I'm not sure that day is gonna come. At the end of all of it, these two players came into the league at the same time with completely different career paths. What they do have in common is having to watch their peers excel and succeed right when they came in, but they themselves had to struggle through it, on teams that lost faith in them very quickly. Both had some major injuries that hindered their progress too, but their skill sets simply did not translate over to the NBA that well. As I mentioned earlier, MKG was always used to being the fastest, most athletic player on the floor. But in the NBA, everyone at his position was just as physically gifted as he was. Sometimes even more. For Dion, in college, he could blow past college wings, but most NBA teams have defensive specialists at the wings, and they overwhelmed him. He got stopped too easily. Anyway, that basically sums it up. Let me know your thoughts on these two players, and did you foresee both of their careers ending by their late 20s? Or did you think they held on much longer than anticipated? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.